Good morning, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown in beautiful Shenzhen, China, awaiting a third typhoon in 2 weeks. Unbelievable. Luckily, we have not been directly hit, which doesn't spare the people that were, but so far Shenzhen has not had a direct hit. After what I saw, the photographs of Macau and Zhuhai to the south of us, I am not wanting to experience what they've been through the last couple of weeks. Anyway, back to business. This is a very important podcast article, and it is entitled Ramsey Clark's and Jay Janssen's Way to Stop Western Genocide, Make the Bastards Pay, dated 2017, September 3rd. As usual, there are loads of hyperlinks, photographs, etc., images, so it behooves you to click on the source article. Pictured above in the actual article, there is on the left is a photograph, sort of a staff, press photograph of George W. Bush and his war cabinet, and on the right are the criminals, the Nazi criminals sitting in the docket at the Nuremberg trials after World War II. And the byline to this montage says, pictured above, there's not a mouse fart's worth of difference between the genocidal criminals on the left and the genocidal criminals on the right. The ones on the right deserve to die a grisly death at the hangman's gallows. Now it's time for the psychopathic mass murderers on the left to die too. All living U.S. presidents merit no less, as well as almost all the others posthumously. Also, we can't leave out all of Europe's many imperial exterminating leaders, living and dead. Quite an indictment. Let's get to the article. While back in the U.S. this summer, I had the pleasure and honor of meeting for the first time two courageous and principled people, Ramsey Clark and Jay Janssen. This after I interviewed both of them on China Rising Radio Sinoland. Both have spent their adult lives fighting the good fight against Western imperialism, colonialism, racism, genocide, and war. Victories against humanity's vampire squid are few and far between. It takes guts and perseverance for Ramsey and Jay, both in their 80s, to keep charging up the hill and heaving spears of righteous justice at the hydra-headed Western monster. Recently, these two wise octogenarians have come up upon an elegant way to get the West to stop its pan-global genocide, sue the bastards in court, and make them pay reparations, just like after a war. In fact, a victim of American genocide has taken up the idea and put it into action. A single Iraqi mother of three, Sundus Shakir Salah, and an American lawyer, Mr. Ender Komar, filed a suit against George W. Bush, Richard Cheney, Donald Rumsfeld, Condoleezza Rice, Colin Powell, and Paul Wolfowitz in March 2013. Using the international law established during the World War II Nuremberg trials, Salah v. Bush, Salah versus Bush, clearly shows that the defendants are guilty of crimes of aggression against the Iraqi people, in other words, crimes against humanity. You have to be ideologically blind not to see that, as stated in the case filed, and I quote, "The defendants broke the law in conspiring and committing the crime of aggression against the people of Iraq. Defendants planned the war against Iraq as early as 1998, manipulated the U.S. public to support the war by scaring them with images of, quote, mushroom clouds, end of quotes, and conflating the Hussein regime with Al-Qaeda, and broke international law by commencing the invasion without proper legal authorization. More than 60 years ago, American prosecutors in Nuremberg, Germany, convicted Nazi leaders of the crimes of conspiring and waging wars of aggression. They found the Nazis guilty of planning and waging wars that had no basis in law and which killed millions of innocents. These are charges of the utmost gravity. War is essentially an evil thing. Its consequences affect the whole world. To initiate a war of aggression, therefore, is not only an international crime, it is the supreme international crime, differing only from other war crimes in that it contains within itself the accumulated evil of the whole. End of quote. All this goes without saying, not to mention hundreds of other Western acts of genocide, massacres, exterminations, invasions, occupations, and false flags for the last 500 years and ongoing across the planet. Westerners have a self-habit of shutting out the, quote, ongoing bit. But trying to use the U.S. justice system to plunge a knife into the empire's heart of darkness is a tall order. Justice has never been blind in any society, and when you go up against a society's owners, the extortion, blackmail, and bribery are locked and loaded. For good measure, the Imperial Obama administration fought it tooth and nail in the California District Court. Who knows what went on behind the closed doors? So, no surprise that in December 2014, this court dismissed Sala v. Bush with prejudice using the Westfall Act as a pretext. The bench said that Bush and company are granted immunity as federal employees who acted, quote, within the scope of their employment, end of quote. Just think of it. You can massacre 1 million Iraqis and say it's okay, but it was your professional duty. This just happens to be the exact same excuse that Nazi leaders used during the Nuremberg trials. And those judges were having none of that. Now, what was good for the fascist goose is perfect justice for the imperial gander. After Sala v. Bush was appealed to the U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, Ramsey Clark filed a friend of the court brief in support of Sala v. Bush, with a number of other notables adding their principled voices. These included high-level representatives from the International Commission for Labor Rights, American Arab Anti-Discrimination Committee, International Committee of the National Lawyers Guild, International Association of Democratic Lawyers, and the National Lawyers Guild. In this brief, these speakers of truth to power stated the obvious, and I quote, that the previous court was forbidden to use Westfall protections to dismiss charges because the Nuremberg Tribunal established norms that prohibit the use of domestic laws as shields to allegations of aggression. National leaders, even American leaders, do not have the authority to commit aggression and cannot be immune from allegations they have done so. Touche, Herr Nuremberg. Amazingly, and to plunge the sword of justice to its depths of clarity and reason, a second friend of the court brief was filed by the sole surviving Nuremberg chief prosecutor, Benjamin Ferencz. Mr. Ferencz warned, paraphrasing in his brief, those in positions of power should not be allowed to subvert their influence to escape responsibility for their crimes. The UN stated after Nuremberg that planning, initiating, or waging war of aggression is a crime against humanity for which individuals as well as states shall be tried before the bar of international justice. End of quote. In response to these powerful briefs of truth and justice, Mr. Sala's lawyer, Inder Komar, lamented that, and I quote, this is a horror that continues to play itself out daily in Iraq. The architects of such chaos have yet to be meaningfully questioned as to their role in this unmitigated tragedy. And of course, we could also mention about 50 other places around the world where this is being perpetrated too. I go on. While Ramsey Clark has been busy in the courtroom, Jay Jansen has been occupied writing articles, contacting news agencies, and politicians to highlight the case. Nobody seriously expects the American courts to side with truth and justice. Even if the Ninth Circuit Court agrees with the world's oppressed and slaughtered, that reactionary ideological snake pit known as the U.S. Supreme Court will shoot it down in the end. If you say, well, why don't they go to that highfalutin International Criminal Court, the ICC in The Hague, far from Uncle Sam's suffocating grip? Ha! Like almost all post-war international institutions, from the United Nations to OPEC to OECD, the ICC takes its imperial orders from Washington. Out of the 10 ICC cases heard for, quote, crimes against humanity, end of quote, 9 were dark-skinned Africans, and the one lone white guy, Slobodan Milosevic, was a socialist ally of Russia. Are you seeing a pattern here? Uncle Sam will not allow any of the numerous genocidal Latin American dictators to be tried at The Hague. Too white and too close for comfort. Hence, all around the world, the ICC is derisively called the International Caucasian Court. So the goal of Salah v. Bush is to expose the racism, genocide, and crimes against humanity that are being perpetrated by Western Empire all over the world. Right now, as you read this article, please don't forget the right now part. Court cases attacking the U.S.'s Jim Crow slave system kept getting denied with prejudice until the time was ripe for change after World War II. Those cases helped frame the moment and prime the pump for hopeful social justice. So help make this new moment arrive sooner than later. After signing up at the top of this webpage to receive the China Rising Bulletin, you can show your contempt for the West's owners by putting your social media to good use and posting this page in its main website. Then spice up your work lunch or water cooler break with a copy of this article to pass around. Who knows? Maybe you can help save the West from itself before it's too late. And don't forget, sharing is caring. No one can say you didn't try. This is Jeff J. Brown in Shenzhen, China for another China Rising Radio Sinoland article and podcast. Thank you for reading and listening, and have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.